we have three choices: the neighborhood vote, the citywide vote, and the local government, or the politicians as I will call them from now on. I think that we should immediately discard the politicians, as their main interest is to stay in power and not to serve the interests of the people. We should not count the interests of the politicians. Rather, we should count the interests of the entire city as a whole, including the neighborhood. However, one could argue that in order for the politicians to stay in power, they need to be re-elected, and to do that, they need to make the lives of the voters better. Yes, true. But how does that work in this situation? This is how. The airport's extension would most likely be built, as that is a very efficient way to improve the economy, and that makes the lives of the voters as a whole better. But doesn't that count the interests of the neighborhood? No, and I must again repeat, no, it does not. Besides, why should we go such a twisted way to count the interests of the city as a whole? We can let the residents of the city decide for themselves with voting. So we can discard the politicians. In the citywide vote, I'm assuming that it is including the neighborhood and the rest of the city. In other words, the entire city. I think that it is also logical to assume that the neighborhood has a small share of the population in the city, less than 50%. The region of the city that's outside of the neighborhood, I will be calling the main city. The neighborhood vote would not be fair to the residents of the main city, because the neighborhood vote will most likely not lead to what the residents of the main city want, and what they want is improving the economy. And the citywide vote would not be fair to the residents of the neighborhood, as the neighborhood would get even more noise and would make their lives unbearable. The airport extension interests for residents of the main city. If we look attentively at the situation, then we can see that building the airport extension makes the lives of the main city's residents improve, and makes the lives of the neighborhood's residents get worse. And we can also see that the residents of the main city, they are trying to make their already good lives even better than they already are. And the residents of the neighborhood, they're fighting, defending their already bad lives from becoming unbearable. Imagine you're back at home after a long, hard day at work. Your family greets you, and soon you all go to sleep. You're incredibly tired, and you're falling asleep very quickly. Your heavy eyelids forbid you from opening them again. Your muscles forbid you from an airplane passes overhead of your house. You've woken up, but you're still tired. You're tired and you can't sleep, and you have had a heart rate that is still going on. When will you be able to fall asleep? We cannot really call voting a process where we know the results with a very high predictability. But can we improve the voting? Can we? Yes, I think it's possible. If we assume that not everybody in the neighborhood will vote no to the airport extension, and not everybody in the main city will vote yes to the airport extension. People in the neighborhood who vote yes for the airport extension could be people who want to move to the main city for some personal reasons. And some of the main city residents who might vote no to the airport's extension could be people like eco-activists. So, how do we improve the system of voting to get rid of its predictability in this situation? This is how. We can proportionally increase the amount of votes that each vote from a neighborhood would count for, so that it would be as though a neighborhood in the main part of the city have the same population. For instance, if the main part of the city has 5 times more people than the neighborhood, then each vote from a neighborhood would count as 5 votes from the main city. However, the residents of the main city would feel that their rights are being suppressed because their voting power is not being raised at all. That is why this is still not such a good system. Let's try a meeting. In it, we would have the executives of the airport company, because then people can get the chance to talk to the people who are directly in charge and represent the building of the airport's extension, elected just for the residents of the neighborhood, so that they can be given a chance to fight, to defend their already bad lives from becoming unbearable. And we would also have elected just for these residents of the main city, so that their voices can also be heard. Not just because of their rights, but also because they, unlike the airport's executives, I assume, live not too far from the airport, so they can say why the airport is important to the city. I think that in the base of the meaning, we have to have a principle, and that is that the lives of the neighborhood's residents should not become worse. Because they are fighting, defending their already bad lives from becoming unbearable, as mentioned before. But could this principle be attempted to be broken? Yes, it could. For instance, the executives of the airport company could say, "We're not going to leave this room until you agree to build the airport extension and do nothing else." In other words, they would disregard the interests of the neighborhood. They could, for instance, give a reason that the prices are already too high. There would have to be a way to enforce this. That is a topic for another conundrum solution. All of the people at the meeting would make compromises. So one of the conclusions of the meeting could be like this. The airport's extension would be built, but each resident of the neighborhood would be given a choice between having their homes soundproofed for them or being given money to move out, since nobody would buy their homes, so they would have to be given money. This is how I solved the airport conundrum.